10 individuals and groups did what should not have been possible. They broke into the most secure systems on the planet, and the world was never the same. From lone teenagers who toppled billion-dollar websites to faceless collectives that leaked government cyber weapons, this countdown reveals how fragile the digital world really was. Some stole fortunes, others exposed secrets that shook nations. It starts at number 10 with a 15-year-old from Montreal. In the 10th place, a single teenager from Montreal brought the early internet to its knees. In February 2000, Michael Kelsey, known online as Mafia Boy, unleashed a wave of distributed denial of service attacks that blacked out Yahoo, CNN, eBay, and Amazon, sending up to 75 gigabits per second of junk traffic crashing into their servers. For hours, the world's biggest websites simply vanished. Kelsey's weapon was a botnet of hijacked home computers, all firing off relentless SYN floods that overwhelmed every defense. Investigators traced the chaos back to a suburban basement where a 15-year-old orchestrated digital mayhem that cost companies an estimated $12 million in immediate losses. Canadian authorities handed down 8 months of probation and a ban on unsupervised computer use. Years later, Kelsey would re-emerge as a security advocate, but his teenage rampage exposed just how fragile the backbone of the internet really was. If a kid with a dial-up could erase the giants, what hope did anyone else have? Number 9. A high school sophomore slipped past NASA's defenses and stole the code that kept astronauts alive. In 1999, Jonathan James, known online as C0M Ray, breached the Marshall Space Flight Center, downloading the source code for the International Space Station environmental controls. This was not a prank. It was the software that managed air, water, and temperature aboard the International Space Station, valued at nearly $1.7 million. James exploited default passwords and unsecured FTP logins, planting backdoors across 13 NASA workstations and even reaching a Pentagon terminal. His intrusion forced NASA to shut down critical systems for 3 weeks as investigators scrambled to flush out his hidden access points. At just 16, James became the first juvenile convicted of federal cybercrime, sentenced to house arrest and probation. Under renewed FBI scrutiny years later, James died by suicide, a stark reminder that the price of digital trespass can be devastating, both for the system and the hacker. No firewall can shield against curiosity armed with a keyboard. In 8th place, a single Russian hacker built a digital crime machine that siphoned fortunes from banks across the globe. Evgeny Bogachev, known online as Slavic, unleashed Gameover Zeus, a peer-to-peer botnet, infecting more than 100,000 computers and draining more than $100 million from victim accounts. Unlike earlier malware, Gameover Zeus operated with a decentralized command system, making it nearly impossible for law enforcement to shut it down. Bogachev's network did not just steal logins, it delivered CryptoLocker ransomware, encrypting files, and forcing desperate businesses to pay millions in Bitcoin to recover their data. In June 2014, a multinational operation finally dismantled the botnet, but Bogachev himself vanished, indicted in the United States yet protected by Russia's refusal to extradite. His botnet proved that organized cybercrime could operate at industrial scale, bypassing borders and outpacing any global response. When a million machines can be hijacked with a few lines of code, nowhere is truly safe. Number 7. A faceless collective cracked open the NSA's vault and unleashed chaos on a global scale. In 2016, the Shadow Brokers leaked a cache of classified cyber weapons, including the Eternal Blue exploit, an unpatched flaw in Microsoft's SMB protocol. That single leak set off a chain reaction. Within months, Eternal Blue became the engine behind the WannaCry and NotPetya ransomware outbreaks, crippling hospitals, shipping giants, and city governments worldwide. Over 230,000 computers across 150 countries were locked down, with damages soaring past $4 billion. Microsoft scrambled to release emergency patches, but the worm had already spread. The true identity of the shadow brokers remains unknown, fueling speculation of insider betrayal or foreign espionage. Their breach proved that when nation-state tools escape into the wild, ordinary people pay the price. When the arsenal meant to protect becomes a weapon against the world, nowhere is safe, not even your own desktop. Number 6. A single hacker turned cash registers into crime scenes and forced the credit card industry to reinvent itself. Between 2005 and 2007, Albert Gonzalez led a crew that infiltrated retail giants like TJX Companies and Heartland Payment Systems, planting RAM-scraping malware on point-of-sale terminals. As shoppers swiped their cards, Gonzalez's code silently siphoned off magnetic stripe data, ultimately capturing details for 170 million cards. The operation ran for nearly 2 years before anyone noticed. The stolen data fueled a global black market, with losses surging past $200 million and banks scrambling to reissue cards. The fallout reached every consumer, pushing the world toward EMV chip technology and stricter PCI standards. Gonzalez, once a moderator on the Shadow Crew carding forum, was tracked through SQL injection payloads and insider testimony. In 2010, he pleaded guilty and received a 20-year federal sentence. When a few lines of code can loot millions at checkout, no transaction is ever truly safe. Number 5. A drifter with a laptop slipped past the digital locks of the New York Times and rewrote the rules of cyber intrusion. In 2002, Adrien Lamo quietly mapped out the Times' internal network, exploiting misconfigured proxies and overlooked host headers to gain administrative access. He did not just read emails, he downloaded a database of reporters, planted his own name in the system, and left a forensic trail that would soon catch up with him. Lamo's signature was unpredictability, 1 week breaching Microsoft, the next Yahoo, all from borrowed Wi-Fi and public libraries. But his most controversial act came in 2010 when he tipped off authorities about Chelsea Manning's leak of classified documents, igniting a storm over whistleblowing versus betrayal. Lamo's plea deal brought 3 years of supervised release, but the moral fallout never faded. In a world where the line between hero and informant is razor thin, trust itself becomes the ultimate vulnerability. Number 4. A lone British hacker triggered an international standoff by slipping into the core of America's military machine. Between 2001 and 2002, Gary McKinnon exploited default passwords to quietly access 97 computers across the Pentagon, the Army, the Navy, and NASA, systems meant to be untouchable. For over a year, he searched for evidence of UFOs, copying files, and leaving taunting notes, while U.S. agencies scrambled to trace the breach. The Department of Defense claimed $700,000 in damages just to clean up his trail. But the fallout didn't end with network repairs. McKinnon's arrest in London sparked a decade-long extradition battle as the United States pressed for trial, and the UK government finally blocked his transfer in 2012 on human rights grounds, citing his Asperger's diagnosis. One man with a modem and a guessable password forced 2 governments into a diplomatic war of nerves. If the world's most sensitive networks can be undone by a single login, what secrets are truly safe? Coming to the top 3, LulzSec's 50-day rampage left the world's biggest brands scrambling to contain the fallout. In 2011, a handful of hackers armed with little more than SQL injection tools tore through Sony Pictures, PBS, and even the CIA public site dumping over 100 gigabytes of stolen data onto the open web. Nearly 1 million Sony user records, including passwords and personal details, were exposed for anyone to grab, triggering a wave of panic and humiliation that no PR team could spin away. LulzSec didn't hide in the shadows. They mocked their targets on Twitter, taunted law enforcement, and courted the media with every leak. But the game turned deadly serious when the FBI flipped the group's ringleader, Hector Monsegur, known as Sabu, turning their own chat logs into evidence. By June 2012, coordinated raids swept up core members across continents. LulzSec's legacy isn't just the reputational carnage, it is the lesson that even the loudest hackers can vanish overnight when trust inside the crew collapses. In the end, a handful of jokes and a few lines of code proved enough to shatter the illusion of digital security. Number 2. A faceless legion crippled the world's payment systems and humiliated a cybersecurity firm in broad daylight. In late 2010, Anonymous unleashed Operation Payback, waves of distributed denial-of-service attacks that knocked PayPal offline, costing the company $5.5 million in lost transactions. The collective's weapon was raw numbers, thousands of volunteers firing up the low-orbit ion cannon, coordinated through IRC, with no leader to trace or arrest. When HB Gary Federal's CEO threatened to unmask them, Anonymous struck back harder, breaking into HB Gary's servers, dumping 70,000 internal emails, and exposing corporate espionage plots to the world. Over 2 years, Operation Payback and its aftershocks targeted governments, corporations, and anyone seen as an enemy of digital protest. Hundreds faced prosecution, but the collective itself endured, its structure too diffuse to destroy. Anonymous proved that a leaderless mob, united by anger and anonymity, can bring giants to their knees. In the end, no firewall can withstand a swarm with nothing to lose and no one to catch. And finally, in first place, the world's most wanted hacker didn't need 0 days or brute force. He just needed a phone and a gift for persuasion. Kevin Mitnick spent the early 1990s slipping past the digital gates of telecom giants and government agencies, not by breaking code, but by breaking trust. With a few well-placed calls, he talked his way into Nokia's internal network, stole proprietary source code, and even left fingerprints on Pentagon systems. For 2.5 years, he stayed a step ahead of the FBI, weaving through a cat-and-mouse chase that became national news. When the dragnet finally closed in 1995, Mitnick faced a 5-year sentence and a permanent ban on touching any computer or phone without permission. But the story didn't end in a cell. He re-emerged as a global security consultant, selling the same social engineering playbook that once made him a fugitive. In the end, Mitnick proved that the most dangerous exploit in cyberspace is human nature itself. No firewall can patch a trusted voice on the line. Across all 10 digital intrusions, one truth emerges. The internet's strongest defenses are only as secure as their weakest line of code. In this hidden cyber underworld, a single mind can shatter global trust overnight. In the digital age, vulnerability is the only constant. Stay vigilant.